Hello, guys, welcome back to Gen Sustainable. So, if you're new here, Gen Sustainable is a place where we discuss all big words like sustainability, corporate sustainability, ESG, climate change, social impact into bite sized content. So, if you're just a corporate junkie trying to decode what are all of these new sustainability buzzwords around you, or if you're a fresher trying to break into sustainability and ESG professionally, or if you're someone who is just looking to understand what is sustainability and what is sustainable lifestyle, there is something in store for all of y'all at Gen Sustainable. So subscribe to Gen Sustainable, like, share, and comment on this video, and let's get started. So, I am sure by now you all know what is ESG, what is sustainability, what is different between the two, what is common between the two, how we as individuals can make an impact towards ESG and sustainability. And if you all don't know all of these concepts as yet, you can go out and check my previous videos where I have discussed all of this in detail. So now let's dive into today's video. So in today's video, we are going to discuss about how international big players like intergovernmental organizations and international financial institutions are pushing and adopting ESG regulations and driving countries to have change towards sustainability and ESG. So now before we jump into a lot of details, first let us brush upon a few concepts for better clarity. So, ESG stands for Environment, Social and Governance, and this is a framework through which companies or organizations manage their sustainability related risks and opportunities. But then, where do these ESG related frameworks come from? Now, globally, there are two types of big players who are pushing towards ESG regulations. The first type of big players are the intergovernmental organizations. So, these could be anyone like the United Nations, UN, or the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development like OECD, which are globally pushing towards ESG regulations. And the second type of big players are the international financial institutions like the World Bank or International Monetary Funds, who are pushing all the financial institutions towards more sustainable investments. Now, this push for sustainable investments is further driving for the development of ESG and sustainability related regulations and frameworks. So, today we'll explore how these organizations work, what type of benefits do they bring for us, and how do they shape the global regulatory landscape. So first, let's begin with understanding the role of intergovernmental organizations. Now, intergovernmental organizations like the United Nations or the World Bank have a special power of bringing together countries for sustainable development. Now, take an example of the United Nations. The United Nations in 2015 came up with the Sustainable Development Goals or the SDGs. Now, these SDGs are primarily 17 goals which act as a blueprint for addressing global challenges like eradication of hunger, eradication of poverty, improving the quality of available water and air, reducing pollution, addressing climate change globally. Similarly, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or which is also known as the UNFCCC, led to the development of Paris Agreement, in which more than 200 countries have pledged to reduce their climate change related impacts and GHG emissions. And then there are organizations like OECD who provide guidelines for big international organizations for responsible business conduct or conducting corporate due diligence. So these guidelines are basically to tell companies that they need to operate in a responsible manner and respect human beings and human rights, and also protect and save the environment while doing this, and also take care of the entire value chain within their organization and operations. And now talking about the next type of players, so these are the financial institutions. Now, financial institutions like World Bank They not just lend money to the countries, but they also make sure that the money lended is used for projects which are good for people as well as the planet. So taking an example, recently World Bank signed a $500 million agreement with India for the development of green national highways. Now, this project would technically consist of aspects like using sustainable and recycled material for constructing roads so that there is less amount of natural resources that are exploited, as well as they would be using green technology and bioengineering for the construction of roads so that there is less amount of carbon emissions and air pollutions. So in this way, financial institutions make sure that the money that they are lending does not cause any harm to the people as well as to the planet. And on the similar lines, organizations like UN have come up with the UN Principles for Responsible Investment. Now, the UN PRI simply provides guideline or framework for investors who want to incorporate ESG criteria into their investment strategies. So, by using UN Principles on Responsible Investment, investors can screen out companies who are doing poor on, say, human rights or causing environmental damage or having human right abuse or human right issues, and in this way make sure that the investments they are making are not hampering the planet or people in any way. And now let's talk about the IMF, or the International Monetary Fund. So what IMF typically does is that it looks towards global economic stability and prosperity. So now it has also started including climate related factors into its lending policies. So IMF is now typically screening towards aspects like green economic transition and providing climate related adaptation and mitigation policies and strategies for developing economies, as well as having carbon transition projects. So institutions like IMF are actively seeking for climate related goals and targets while lending money to countries. So the IMF also has a resilience and sustainability trust through which it helps vulnerable countries who are in the low or middle income group for building resilience towards climate change, as well as for their holistic sustainable development and growth. Now, apart from this, the UNEP's financial initiative has led to the formation of Net Zero Banking Alliance. So here about 145 largest banks all over the world have come together to form an alliance so that they can design their investments, lending activities and overall market capital and financial activities in a way which supports net zero GHG emissions by 2050. Apart from this, the Net Zero Banking Alliance supports and guides its members to have science-based net zero targets to be set by 2030 or before that. The UNEP also has the principles for responsible banking, and under these principles for responsible banking, the Net Zero Climate Alliance acts as a climate accelerator for banks to achieve net zero emissions. Now, while all of these activities are happening at global level, there are several countries who are taking country-level initiatives to mitigate climate change and promote sustainable development. Now, Japan, for example, passed the Green Transformation Promotion Act in 2023, and this act sets a guideline for the country to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. Now, this transformation would require about 150 trillion Japanese yen in financing, and the government plans to recover some of these costs from issuing bonds related to green transformation in the country. The European Union has also come up with several initiatives and policies to mitigate climate change. So, for example, the EU Green Deal talks about having net zero emissions in EU member states by 2050, as well as the member states require to reduce their GHG emissions by at least 55% by 2030. So now what happens when international intergovernmental organizations as well as international financial institutions advocate for ESG? Well, this creates a top-down approach for creating a better path towards sustainable development and mitigating climate change. So now when intergovernmental organizations push for climate related and sustainability related regulations and investments, countries are in turn forced to have sustainability and climate related regulations at the country level. So, as the regulatory landscape evolves at the national level, then there is a push to reshape the reporting and the disclosure landscape in the country. So, for example, now the EU has mandated the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive (CSRD) disclosures for the large EU companies operating within EU member states. Similarly, in India, SEBI has mandated the BRSR Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting for top 1000 listed companies as per market capitalization. As well as in the UK and in the Japan, companies have to report as per the TCFD disclosure. Similarly, countries like Australia and South Africa are coming up with disclosures for companies listed on their stock exchanges. So this is how the regulatory landscape, which is shaping at the country level, is then mandating the organizations or the companies or the big players within the countries to report what efforts they are taking related to sustainability and climate mitigation at their organization. So, to sum it up, all of these intergovernmental organizations and international financial institutions have brought countries together to foster innovation and to make sustainability as a priority at the country level. So that's all for today. In the meantime, let me know in the comment section below what are your thoughts about the evolving global and national regulatory landscape for ESG and sustainability. Until the time we come back with a new topic, like, share and subscribe. And don't forget to be impactful and be gen sustainable. Bye bye, like, share, subscribe, comment.